Hello and welcome back to the On the Slab Horror Show, the show that we bring to you each and every week. Tombstone Ted, why do we do this on a Friday night?
Friday night is horror night over here.
Absolutely. And our guest is actually in the UK, so he might actually recognise the reason and why when we tell him. So do you remember on a Friday night at 10 o'clock, you used to get all the free horror channels on Channel 4?
Oh, I probably was before I moved to the UK, but in Spain it was also on Fridays horror night. So same.
Oh, okay.
Brilliant. Even better.
I see. I only went to Spain when I was younger, and I don't really remember watching the telly too much, so I wouldn't have known that. But yeah, we used to get all the freebies there. All the classics. Nightmare on Elm Street, Texas Chainsaw, The Exorcist, every one of them. But I just being in the UK, I thought you might have known that one, but as you said, Friday was
good
for you.
Good to know that it was the same in Europe as well. Maybe that's a more global thing than we thought.
Yeah. God bless the horror. But welcoming back on the Slab resident Ted. How are you, sir?
Oh, I'm not too bad. This is a great episode to be on. Got the chance to watch this film last night after it was sent on to us, and really enjoyed it now.
Definitely didn't disappoint. But as you can see, we are joined by a guest who is the director of the latest blockbuster horror to hit the cinemas in BagHead. This is Mr. Alberto Corredor. How are you, sir?
I'm very, very well. Thank you for having me in your show.
I didn't butcher your name there, did I?
No. Don't worry. I will butcher other things with your name and other movie names. So don't worry about that. You did it perfectly.
Well, that works too. I've done it before where I've absolutely butchered someone's name and they called me out on it and I was like, sorry. Obviously, I said the latest blockbuster film to hit the latest blockbuster horror to hit the cinemas, obviously widely produced by Studio Canal as well. A big thanks to them for giving us the chance to view it. And let me just jump straight in, Alberto. How did you get started in this one?
Well, it's been a long process. I mean, I shot the short at the end of 2017. I was trying to do a low budget feature movie. And when I started looking for collaborators and so on, Lorcan Rayleigh, the writer of the short, sent me a few short scripts that he had, and one of them was BagHead. I love the story. I love for all the character. And I think after a couple of hours and reading it like 2 or 3 times, I decided, yeah, that's going to be it. So I called Lorcan straight away and I told him, listen, we can do this short, but I want to do a longer story. I want to do a feature out of it. So I wanted to have like a proof of concept with the short. We took it to some pitching contests just to see how to put out feelers and to try to find some financing. Shorts TV gave us the opportunity. We won the pitching contest, and that gave us the platform to make something a bit bigger, not because of the money, but because of the name of Shorts TV. That attracted better actors, better crew, and so on. And from there, it went quite well. When we finished it, we took it to the festival circuit. It did extremely well. There, we started making contacts, and at some point, we got a contact with what was Good Fear at the time, Jake Wagner, which is my manager. And they were very interested. They had some experience doing already these transfers from short to feature movies. At some point, Jake left Good Fear and established Alibi by himself, and we went with him. And he had a relationship already with Verve, which is a talent agency in the States. They took me as a client with them, and they started showing me all the contacts. I went for like a week to LA. I started meeting producers, studio reps, and so on. And in one of those meetings, I met Andrew Rona from the picture company. He was very, very interested in the story. He watched the short and he loved the short and wanted to make a feature out of it. And he had already a working relationship with Studio Canal. They had a multi-film deal with them. And he put forward BagHead as one of the movies that they could make. And yeah, that's how it happened.
I mean, it's great to see. You've seen a lot of that lately now, obviously off the indie circuit and whatnot, of people making short movies so that they put something out, then they can build their profile for the movie, and then it picks off and it kicks off big time. But to be picked up by a company as big as Studio Canal almost instantly is a testament to how good the short must have been.
Yeah, well, instantly, instantly.
Well,
Since
not
now,
instantly,
it wasn't at the time. But yeah, no, it was. I have to say, I wasn't really expecting it to go like that. I have to be honest. It went very fast because it did very well in big festivals, in big horror and fantasy film festivals. But it was more like when you meet the right people. Jake was the first piece of this puzzle. And then the guys in the picture company, Andrew Rona and Alex Heineman. Because when you have people who do this and they like what they have seen, it's easier. Yes, there is a trend now of picking up short movies where you see the potential to make a feature out of it. But it is also, I think it has to do also how they feel about what you see in that short. And I think having a character like BagHead, which is quite iconic and visually very exciting, it is what actually wrapped the deal up.
I think the look being so different, obviously very plain compared to some witches you see. Obviously, it's just a bag over someone's head. Obviously, it goes back to the likes of Jason in Friday the 13th too, when he had the bag and things like that. It's just such a good look. So simple, so plain, but so effective.
Yeah, for me, the main idea is when we were discussing how to create this witch and for the short, for me, it was very, very important to have something with textures, and the burlap sack and the hands and the dress and so on gave me that. But it also, I didn't want to have the classic witch, you know, that is with the big hair and the cracking voice and the long fingernails. And so you have seen that many times. I wanted to have something more rough, something that you could see coming out of a hole in the wall, something that really scares the shit out of you because you don't really know what is underneath that burlap. That was the idea.
There was one scene when you first see herself before she transforms. Now, I'm trying not to give away too many spoilers because obviously it's taken, but it's something you see. It's something you see in the ads as well, where she starts to transform, and you see her hand on the chair, and her fingers break down. And I was like, nope. So, like, you know what? I can stand there and I can watch people being massacred in movies. It's the small, simple things, and we've said it in many a show. From standing on a nail to even in X when Jenna Ortega gets her fingers cut off. I was like, nope, just no, not for me.
They're the things that you can imagine happening to yourself. Do you know what I mean? Like you can imagine breaking your fingers. It's very hard to imagine, you know, some like 16-foot tall lad coming in with a big machete and murdering everyone in the room that you're in. It's a lot easier to imagine, oh yeah, my finger could break and how painful that'd be.
Yeah, for me, it's really, really interesting, and I'm very happy that you're talking about that, because it was very important when we describe it. And obviously, you always had budgetary limitations, but for me, the first time we see the witch, it was very important. And I spoke to the VFX team and also to Birga, who did the prosthetics, to show pain. That this process of transforming into someone else from the witch was painful, that you could feel her pain. Because we did a bit of that of the short, but obviously we didn't have any money to spend on VFX. But in this one, at least in that first scene, I wanted to have that you can feel those bones cracking, that you can feel that pain that she's experiencing too. Because it's a very important part in the story to me, was like, you're seeing this entity, this creature, or whatever you want to call it, in the basement. Everyone is using her, but nobody really asking, why is she there? Why are we taking this liberty of thinking we can use her however we want? Because those things are painful to her too.
Yeah, I thought when she comes out with a hole the first time, and it is obvious that her hand is just going like this to grab onto the wall, but it's the way the hand comes out. It kind of comes out a bit crooked.
Yeah.
So it's like you can already tell from there that the bones they're not solid. They've been broken so many and misshapen so many times.
Correct.
And like I thought that was a great visual. And then to see the visual of when they're on the chair and the fingers are retracting or getting bigger depending on if they're like who they're turning into, someone with smaller hands or someone with bigger hands. And then the getup of as you said, the burlap sack, the dress. It's very simple, but simple is kind of perfection. Like when you try to go over the top, if you go too over the top and it doesn't work, it takes away from the character you're building. Whereas if you just go something simple, like, right, let's just put a burlap sack, which is, grimy, dirty, everything like that. Let's just put that over their head. It's simple, it's memorable, and, it gives you that feeling of this is something that, don't mess with this person. Like, who's walking around with a burlap sack over their head with just one eye cut out of it and everything? Like, it's the simple things of that really push the character over the edge. And
like, as I said to you there, obviously going back to Friday the 13th 2, where Jason has it, and I've seen it in a couple other ones that the names are slipping off the top of my head at the minute, but it's that iconic, as you said, the texturous look of the bag against what would be probably normal wear clothes.
Yeah.
Makes it look really rough, and more so to a point, it makes her look as if she was poor to an extent, and obviously not well kept because she's wearing a bag on her head, which was hence the name of the movie.
Yeah, it's funny because when we shot the short, that was one of the main points. Is the design of the witch is what makes the story work or not. And for me, it was very important to reflect where she was coming from, because she has been hundreds of years in that place, in that basement, and mistreated and so on. So we wanted to have something that had this timeless feeling to it, and that is not too complex, something that you could have worn for the past 300 years, and that's how it looks. I always say I like to have this kind of designs of approach, like it's a bit like Guillermo del Toro, but lower down, because he could have done something fantastic, but different. And for me, it was important that it was simple. And when we did the transfer to the feature movie, I remember having the chat with the costume designer, with Mona May. And when we went to the witch and she started showing me the designs and so on, all the time I was doing more simple, rougher, simple, rougher, simple, rougher, because she would start designing the shoes and so on. I said, those shoes look too nice for her. They have to have holes. You have to be able to see the toes. I mean, she's been there forever, and nobody's taking her to Primark or to Zara to buy new clothes and so on, So at the end of the day, is what it is.
That's it. We've said it before on shows, when people go too over the top with the creature or the monster, or myself and Ted are huge fans of werewolves. When you go with something like that and you go too over the top, it just doesn't look good, and it can take away from the movie.
Yeah.
I think the look here, so plain and simple, theoretically looks like a normal human being for all intents and purposes. When the bag is off before she transforms, is perfect. It's gonna be one of those iconic witch looks that you'll see probably be redone now for the next couple of years. In certain ways, obviously, when we seen, remember the witches that came out, the Roald Dahl one, it was the really ugly
big
long nose. All of a sudden that became the way for the next while, and then Hocus Pocus came out, and then they were more human based. So it goes in roundabouts, but I think you'll see what this is going to do now will bring forward that kind of simpler look again.
I hope so. I mean, I've been, for the past 3 years, more or less, I've been using the burlap every single time when we have here Halloween for trick or trick, and it works a treat, because the kids only take one sweet. When we see me coming out of the door with the burlap, everyone is like, holy shit. I only had one once that I was a bit disappointed, because it was like teenagers standing there, and one of the guys went, oh, look, the scarecrow. And it's like, oh no, you got the movie wrong. Huh?
I get that, yeah.
I can see where he's coming from with the scarecrow, the burlap sack, but Yeah, I think the burlap sack also really helps and I don't know if it obviously wasn't a budget restriction which is the reason you went for it, but it also does help in that because throughout the film we don't actually see the witch as herself a whole lot. I think there's maybe 3 or 4 scenes where you see her in her own face, and the rest of the time it's kind of you just see the mouth, which is just quite long teeth and kind of like black gums and stuff, which looks great. But that's all you see of her natural face. And then all the other times, it's just the actors or actresses once the bag comes off. So you don't get a whole lot of the witch, which I think works a lot in kind of creature features. More like less is more a lot of the time. You don't like, if you're seeing the character the whole time, it desensitizes you to the character. I think the first time we see her, the witch's full face is without giving away too many spoilers, is when she has her back to everyone and she's sitting in the corner.
Yeah.
And she turns around and you kind of get that little jump scare of her like shrieking out at them. And that's probably the only time you get a full face picture of the witch.
Yeah, correct. And it was for me, like you said, is less is more in this kind of movies. And in the short, we didn't want to show her face. We only wanted to show the bottom part of the jaw, because that is what makes it more interesting. You never know what is behind that burlap, and it could be anything, because when she pulls off the burlap, it's someone else. So that was something that I was fighting for the whole time. Let's show less. Obviously, you have to find also a compromise, because at some point you want to see what is behind that burlap, but we try to keep it down. Yeah.
Yeah, no, I think that was a great move. I think that worked brilliantly throughout the entire film. Like at no point was I disappointed that I didn't see more of her, but at no point was I like, right, well, I'm kind of there's no interest there because I've seen her so many times. At no point did I feel either way. Like I felt it was absolutely perfect on the line where you needed to be there.
I think going off that, where I was saying about the other movies that have people with burlap sacks and you see less is more, I think one of the biggest ones was probably Trick or Treat with Sam. Everyone wanted to see his face, and you see it for all of about a minute, maybe 2 in the whole film, and it's such an iconic character now. I think the movies are different, because Trick or Treat kind of went under the radar and got a lot of less love than BagHead is receiving early. But like by all means, this witch could go on and spawn a new look for the next number of years. As you said,
Trick or Treat became a cult classic in a sense. I mean, it's a movie that I keep watching and watching because it has very, very good moments. Yeah, of course. It's very, very, very creepy. I like movies, and that's what I tried also with BagHead, where you feel this uncanniness about everything, things that make you feel like this is not from this world, but not because it's so ugly or so violent or so perverse. It's like Jason behind the mask. It's exactly the same. It's like you cannot really see what is there, and it could be that it's been there for hundreds of years, for thousands of years, since the start of humanity. It's just pure evil.
It was a perfect one. And as Ted said earlier, when she comes out of the wall, the hole in the wall, something so simple. Now I gotta ask you, I did know, like, I didn't think I was in. Is it a little nod to the likes of Texas Chainsaw, where they come out from behind the door, the wall, or was that just an idea you had to come out of the blackness?
No, it was genuinely, the idea is that behind that hole was the cave, that she was trapped in the cave where she was living at the time, and they just built the building on top of that cave, and at some point they closed the entrance to the cave just to keep her prisoner, but because they couldn't stop using her gifts, her power, they created this hole in the wall so she could come out. That was the whole idea. For me, it was the hole in the wall was always a metaphor, because she's this bridge between the dead and the living. And whenever she crosses the threshold, she's bringing that death into the world of the living. That was, and it was always very important for me that when you look into that hole, is sheer blackness, because that's the other side.
That's a great description. She's the portal between the living and the dead. And I suppose that's what witches were, really, and that's how they were known, wasn't it? To an
Yeah,
extent.
is what she does. Is she got trapped between the two walls, and now she's just the bridge between them.
So, in terms of the movie, what was the most challenging moments you had on set?
Oh, there was so many, man. I mean, it was the first time that I was doing a feature movie in this studio system. So I had to learn on my feet, because from the very moment, the very first moment, you think everyone is telling you, don't worry, Alberto. It's just a little horror movie, low budget. You don't have to worry about anything. You say, okay. And you start working on it. And the first day that you come on set, you see like 10 tracks and you see hundreds of people they are going around and so on. It's holy shit. And you're going to get into set and someone is there with the walkie saying, Alberto is stepping on set. And you, what the fuck, man? It's like coming from shooting your short where I was even organizing the catering myself, you know, it's a big jump. So the most challenging thing for me was to be able to focus on what was important, what I had to be on top of, because you can get really spread very thin if you start taking on too many things. It's also, I always say, when I ask what was the most challenging thing, well, it was right after lockdown. So COVID was difficult. And then you go there, everyone is wearing a mask, because otherwise, if you get sick, you have to close down production. So there was always this added stress that you cannot really meet people after shooting, that you always wear the mask and you don't really know how people look like. And it's very difficult to create a close relationship with people when you don't see the full face.
Yeah.
So I think the isolation of COVID was the most difficult thing while we were shooting.
That's what I've heard about a lot of directors and actors and producers and stuff that we've had on the show. Have said that once shooting around that time was just horrendous to do, because you don't get the friendliness, you don't get the conversations. Yeah. Once you're finished your scene, you're put into a corner to stand there.
Yeah.
Unfortunately, that was at the time of the world, and unfortunately for your first film, you didn't get to experience that. But I've no doubt that come the next feature film, it'll be a lot different for you. And I imagine
I'm not going to hear being complaining about, hey, listen, it was shit because after COVID I was shooting a movie. I mean, I would be a dick if I say that, you know. Yeah. But the circumstances is that it's very difficult to work in an atmosphere where personal relationships are very important when you're shooting a movie, not only with the crew, with the actors, with everyone. And if you have that barrier in front, it makes it really difficult, because you have too short a time to create those relationships.
Absolutely. As it says, it's tough when you can't do things after work. Obviously, you're in the UK. Even in Spain, I'd say it's a thing. Once you're finished work, you might go out for a drink or have a drink with friends, things like that. That's just a thing. Yeah, it's just it wasn't an option.
We didn't have that, and every weekend I would be working only with the director of photography, with Kale, and the first lady, Laura, and because we were part of this bubble, and you can afford to do that. But towards the end of the shooting, when we started getting the COVID positives from people, we were already shooting ourselves, like, because if it was have been me or the DP or one of the main actors, we were really, really lucky with them, because come on, you are in Berlin, because we shot in Berlin, and you are 20, you want to go out. You don't care, you know? So they could go out. I know they would go out, because I would be doing the same. But every single weekend, we would wait and pray and say, hopefully they didn't get it. And they didn't. And in the end, they didn't get it, and we were lucky. But you are always in that kind of pressure cooker situation where it could kick off. And the last 2 weeks, we have a couple of people. One of the camera operators got sick, so we have to look for an alternative and test everyone else again. So yeah, that wasn't really nice.
That was it is what it is. At least, as I said to you, the next time you shoot a movie, a feature length, it's not going to be like that, because obviously none of those things are in place anymore. So you'll actually be able to enjoy the the camaraderie at the end of a day or at the end of the week or whatever way you wanted to do it.
Yeah, let's hope.
I have a well.
I've no doubt you'll be on another feature length as a director sometime soon. Once this gets its run in the cinema and then gets its run on wherever it goes after the cinema. So it used to be DVDs and things like that, but that's a kind of thing of the past. So it's more streaming platforms now. But wherever it goes after the cinema, I have a feeling it's going to get a very good reception and very well rated. And I think this could end up being one of the kind of as you said, Trick or Treat, like this could end up being kind of one of those cult classics in the end, because I think the character is so different, not exactly unique, because we've seen witches and we've seen people who can reach the dead, but the way that this character interacts with as being able to link with the dead and how they can get into the mind of the people around them, I think that's the real selling point of the character, and I think it could end up being a very big character in the next kind of couple of years.
Thank you for your kind words.
I absolutely thought as soon as I seen that first scene where she, as I said, their fingers are breaking, I was like, oh no. It's one of them movies that are going to try and make you feel as uncomfortable as possible when you see things. Obviously, the transformations, as you said, are meant to be painful. We've seen that throughout movies, the likes of American Werewolf, obviously done it with an amazing effect. But that was Rick Baker, and he's just an all-round genius.
Yeah.
Because doing that in the 80s just didn't exist. We've seen some movies where transformations happen just like that, and it doesn't look like anything. Again, it's fine for certain movies. I think the way you've gone about it is the correct way, showing that it's not just all glitz and glam, straight up change. Like you see them, I'm not going to say it on screen because I don't want to ruin it for people. But the way they have to go about getting her to transform makes it even better. Because obviously, again, when we go back to movies like this, where you've got to sacrifice something to
the entity,
conceal the debt, basically.
Yeah, for me it's good because that's the main reference that I picked on this movie is for me that was the transformation, because I remember the first time that I watched it, although I have to say The Howling was the real one, because American Werewolf in London came later. I mean,
it did, yeah.
The Howling was the first time that I saw a transformation. Holy shit, And when I was thinking about BagHead in the show, we couldn't do it because again, we didn't have any money. We have to ask and beg for someone to do kind of a more than a morph that wasn't a dissolve. But for the feature, I just wanted to have that. I wanted to have the pain, like seeing someone. I mean, if you are shape shifting into someone, it has to be painful. Because at the end of the day, your bones have to be rearranged. And that's what I wanted to do. And obviously, The Howling and American Werewolf in London, well, they were the template for that, yes.
Yeah, as it is the way it was. I thought the pub looked fantastic. Real old school rundown. I loved how you had some modern alcohol in it. Obviously, because it's supposed to be a pub. But I thought the features of the pub looked great when they go upstairs and you see the rooms, even down to the sinks and the bathrooms and things like that. I thought it looked fantastic. The set design was brilliant.
The production designer, Mark Witz, he did a fantastic job. I mean, you have to understand it wasn't a pub. It was it's kind of a very typical German kind of upper class building. Is like a manor, like a big house, a mansion. And what we did is this place has been used more in movies. I mean, they book it a lot of times. And when we went there, it was like, yeah, we could do a pub, absolutely, because it has to be weird. I always wanted to have something that is really weird with this long staircase and the pub in the middle, but that it looks run down. But you could think like it's more like a hidden thing, and that you have your this long corridor that goes to the basement. So yeah, that was all in the production design, because you have to think, for me, the pub and the basement, they were characters inside of the movie. They have to bring also this feel, because it's not only about the witch that is down there, it's also about the tragic story of the people who get to be the keepers of that witch, and that they give their lives thinking that they are getting a great deal because they get this power and probably money. But at the end of the day, they realize, fuck, this is this Faustian pact that comes back to bite you, because you are like in one of the moments in the movie, and without spoiling it too much, the witch telling the keeper, you have to realize we both are prisoners here, because that's the reality.
Yeah, I think that's great, because it really plays in on the, even if you're told before, you know, like you sign the deed of that building and you're like, right, don't use the witch, don't use the witch, don't use the witch, don't use the witch. There's just that innate greed in humans.
Yeah.
Where, you know, at the start, she obviously says no to the first request. And then more money comes onto the table and she's like, well, I don't know now. Like a bit more money, I'll think about it. And it's just that innate greed of humans that, you know, if a certain amount of cash is put in front of you, you might be like, well, I'll let them I'll let them go down and see the witch then. Sure, like what does it matter to me? I'm stuck here anyway.
Everybody has a price.
Yeah, it's also greed. I think the character of Iris is greed, because not really greed is if you never had money, you cannot even call it greed. You just want to have a foothold with your life. But it's also about curiosity. I mean, I've been asked many times, would you use the witch? I say, of course. Why not? I mean, I'm too curious not to do that. Many people would say, no, I wouldn't touch that. But come on, I've done the Ouija board too when I was young. Why? Because you want to change, because you want to see, you are too curious. That's what makes us humans. We make mistakes, and we pay for them, but at the end of the day, without curiosity, we wouldn't be where we are.
Yeah,
absolutely.
I think that's the great thing, without giving too much away. Obviously, you have the two girls, and one, like, they both come from a kind of foster parent system, and one of them's doing well, and then Iris is not doing too well, and then Iris inherits the pub. And I like that, you know, her curiosity does kind of get the better of her, but her friend at the whole time is kind of is the opposite, and you can tell that if their roles were reversed, this probably wouldn't have been an issue, because the friend is kind of the smarter one. She's the smart one in the film, going, yeah, maybe we shouldn't that dark alleyway, maybe we shouldn't go down there. Maybe we should just stay away from that thing that everyone's told us is dangerous. Maybe we should just stay away from that. You know, I love that there's someone in the film, because when you watch films like that, you're like, why is everyone so stupid? Why would everyone be like, yeah, it's a great idea to go into the big haunted mansion or whatever? Like, and there's never anyone going, do you know, guys, maybe we shouldn't do this, and maybe you guys go in and I'll stay out here. And I love that there was that in this film, that you had a kind of a character being like, what we're all sitting here thinking, going, you know, don't be stupid, don't do that.
Yeah, but we all have the crazy friend that we
and then we'd all go
and say, why did we do this? Why did we? I knew it was going to pan out really badly.
And I still went with it.
One of those cases.
Yeah, you do it for the hype.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, it is, and I think that's great to have that, especially because they're both quite young characters in it. They're obviously both meant to be in and around their kind of 20s or whatever. So like that's the exact time where peer pressure and wanting to go along with the crowd is still a big thing in your life. You know, you don't want to be seen as the kind of stick in the mud. So like I think that worked very well there. That she, you know, this is her best friend, and she was like, right, I'll do it. I'll do this for you. But even though even against my better judgment, I thought that worked really well. Like, just that, you know, that they're not teenagers, but they've just gotten out, like they're teenagers just getting into adulthood, and that you still have that as much. And listen, anyone who's, you know, in their 20s watching this, we were all the same. We all thought we had the world figured out at 20. We all thought we knew what was going on. And when you look back, you're like, man, I was such a fucking idiot. Like, I didn't know fuck all about the world. But at that age, you do think you know everything, and you think, I know what I'm doing. I'm all right here. And I think the characters are exactly like that.
I think her development, obviously, she's broke as well. She makes that known almost instantly. All of a sudden, your man's throwing $4,000 at her, and she owns this pub, and she's like, well, I could make a few pound here. So as you said, the greed gets to her. But I'm not even sure it's greed in her case. I think it's the want of never having that.
Yeah, it is. A huge part of it is there, but not for her necessarily to greed, but the people, the predecessors, a lot of their ones were just greed. And that is what would happen in, like, if this was, you know, if you walked into a pub now and you were told, yeah, you can sign this and this will happen, you'd kind of be like, well, there's a lot of money to be made there. Maybe I will. Like even knowing that you shouldn't, you're just kind of.
It's also the last notch is also the opportunity. She never had a real childhood, and she never met her dad, so she didn't know him. And through this, is this combination. Is this combination? Because fun fact is, when we started writing the story for the future, Christina, who did the first draft, we went for someone older. It was two friends. They inherit the pub, and they tried to reopen it. They tried to reopen it and start making money. But when we knew that Freya was available and willing to do the movie, we say, okay, then we will change it to someone younger. Then you have to look for different motivations, because like you say, you have to adapt it. And when you are in your 20s and you get to that pub, come on. I mean, people will say it's a bit silly. I wouldn't do that. I say, yeah, when you are 20, you do plenty of silly things. And if you can get money and on top of that power, and you get to see things that other people don't see, and in this case, you can kind of understand what happened in your childhood and where your dad was and your family, then I don't know it's that easy to say I wouldn't do it.
Yeah, exactly. And I think that's the beautiful thing about it, is that it is the sort of thing you can sit here and say, oh, I wouldn't do that. But if the opportunity was really put in front of you, could you say, yeah, I wouldn't do it, you know?
I'm 100% doing it. 100%. Not even a second thought.
I think Freya was a great cast for there as well, because her star had, at the time you would have been recording, her star would have kind of been on the rise. She would have just done The Witcher. I think she would have just finished the first or second series of that.
Yeah,
I think around that time.
The second series, yeah.
Yeah, so like her star was just on the rise. She hadn't become like a global megastar yet, but she definitely had a big name value there already.
It's always circumstances, because people ask you how is the casting process and so on. It's a very organic thing. Obviously, you have in your head ideas who you want to cast and who not, you don't want to cast. But the reality is that Studio Canal had done already Gunpowder Milkshake, a movie in which Freya had a small role. Yeah. And everyone was enthralled with Freya and how she is on camera and so on. And they raised the possibility. She was interested, and I had watched the first season of The Witcher, and I go, okay, yeah, I like her. And when we talk about it, it was like she did the story, and I could see how she could be that kind of person. She's always in this fine line of being almost a teenager, because sometimes it's difficult that make them to be likable. And she has this kind of deadpan style at some points, but I think she did a fantastic job in how it's progressing throughout the story.
Yeah, I think I know I mentioned her name specifically, but I think everyone in this did their role brilliantly. I think her dad, being kind of, you know, a drunk and disillusioned with what had happened to him, he played that brilliantly. The best friend, as I said earlier, she was the perfect other side of the coin to Iris. I think everyone played their role so well in this.
Jeremy was brilliant as well.
Jeremy was brilliant. Yeah, I think everyone was
very good. Yeah,
I think everyone just really nailed. Like, it kind of felt like when they got in and they started recording, that they all kind of fell into the character in a way, and they all really nailed in on it. I think that, like, no one there felt out of place in what they were doing. Like, you could fully believe that each of these people was that person. You know what I mean? Like, sometimes you watch a film and you're like, I don't really buy that that character with that actor or things like that. Whereas I didn't feel that at all here. I felt everyone tied in perfectly to where they should be. Like,
yeah, no, we were very lucky with casting, and the case that Peter Boulan could be in the movie. For me, when they say he was available, it was like, what? do I need to sign with my blood to have in my movie? Because
You need to sign with that pen.
One of these characters, character actors, man. I never thought I'm going to have it for my first movie, and it was there, and it's fantastic, and it's sometimes it makes your job so much easier, because it's how you direct someone like Peter. You don't. You just there and you do
you just go.
And any of those 3 takes are great. So, and it's phenomenal that the guy is constantly talking, telling stories, talking to the other actors, and you are nervous, like you want to explain the scene and what is happening and so on. He doesn't care, and then you say action, and then he's there 100%, and he nails it every single time, and it's like, wow, that's what I want to do. That makes my life so much easier.
Yeah.
I'm a bit conscious of of time and stuff, and I don't really want to jump into anything too deep into the movie because I don't want to ruin it for any cinema goers that haven't had the chance to see it yet. But overall, I have a couple of things there from the lads, the other co-hosts Ian and Carl, who have had a chance to watch it. It's gone down an absolute treat in this group anyway. I have, Jesus, it's been one of the better horrors that I've seen in a long time.
Thank you.
Definitely the best one of the year so far, and I've watched 9 of them so far.
Yeah, well, there's been 2 Hollywood films, two Hollywood horror films, and they both came from shorts. So this and then Night Swim was the first one that came out a little bit earlier.
You know that Bryce, the director of Night Swim, was writer in BagHead. It's a buddy of mine. Yeah. I love Bryce. So I'm so happy that Night Swim is doing so well.
Yeah, so
I enjoyed that as well. Yeah,
2 films that have come up from kind of the independent scene where they were shorts, and they've been brought up to a Hollywood level, and both have done very well. On a personal level, I've enjoyed this more than I enjoyed Night Swim. I thought Night Swim was very good. I just felt it had kind of been done before, and it didn't deviate from stuff I'd seen in the past. Whereas this, I felt, although had similarities to things I'd seen in the past, deviated in its own way. I much preferred this. And that's not to put down Night Swim. I thought Night Swim was very good. And I definitely think it's worth the watch, and it's something I'll probably rewatch again in the future. But on my personal way, like this was ahead of Night Swim in terms of the 2 big horrors I've seen this year.
Okay, I can brag. I can brag now with Bryce. Yeah. Hey, they like my movie more.
Yeah, tell him. I'm happy to tell him.
Tell him to hit me up there, and I'll tell him out straight.
Yeah.
Then you will tell him you like his movie more than mine, huh?
No, definitely not.
We're pretty much straight honest on this show.
Fair. we did a review of Night Swim there recently. That'll be I think it'll be gone up soon.
Last week's episode.
Week's episode, and we did a review, and as we said, like in that, I thought it was good, and it does seem to be getting slated in Rotten Tomatoes, which I don't really pay much attention to, because I've seen some of the ratings that people put in, and they're like, I didn't like it, it was scary, and I'm kind of sitting there going, well, then what are you watching if you're watching a horror film and then you're rating it poorly because you got scared, I think you're misunderstanding the idea of, oh, something that's meant to be scary scared me. But that's what it's meant to do. So that you should be rating it highly, not poorly, because of that. So I don't really judge any film off that. But like having watched it, I was like, this is it's good, but it wasn't great to me. And like I understand it's a friend of yours who's directed it, but it's not a knock at him. I think I did enjoy the film. I thought it did quite well. And like it's the sort of thing that if it was on, I would 100% sit down and watch it again. I wouldn't be like, oh, I'm not too fussed with that. But it's just something I felt I had seen before in certain ways, and that's difficult in horror because so much has been done in horror. That's part of the difficulty here.
That's the curse of the horror film, isn't it? It's getting more and more difficult to bring new things. But I think it's a matter of finding new angles. But because, like you said, it's been done before, witches or people who are mediums or that talk to the dead and so on. It's about how you go, which angle you give it, and it's about the characters. At the end of the day, it's the characters.
I wouldn't mind when we recorded the Night Swim episode. At the end of it, we actually name dropped BagHead as the next one that we wanted to see, and then all of a sudden, the interview with yourself lined up, and I was like, "Oh, okay,
Yeah,
everything's coming up,
Fate.
Millhouse."
It's fate. It's back. Keep us connected.
BagHead's keeping us connected. So, like, hopefully we don't have to pay any. We don't have to keep her. You know, keep an eye on her or anything. Hopefully that was just,
I don't want to be a gatekeeper. Thanks.
Yeah, hopefully this was a freebie from BagHead, and we haven't been signed into any sort of contracts like that.
Not yet.
Not yet.
Alberto, just before we finish up, have you anything upcoming that you'd like to promote?
Yeah. At the moment is I'm pretty busy doing this, all the promotion and so on. I'm finishing a script. It's more of a dystopian story, very violent, something that I would like to do more along the lines of A Quiet Place, that kind of story with
nice.
family and so on. But I also have something that we started already a couple of years ago that we stopped because of COVID, and then we stopped because of the strike last year. But it's more. I wouldn't call it completely a military horror, but along those lines. And that is more related to the actual situation, the war in the Ukraine, that I thought is a very interesting theme that is bringing us back to the era of the Cold War. And one of my favorite movies is The Thing. And I like these settings in a mountain, the snow, the isolation, and in a military barracks. So that's the next one. Probably we're out trying to find the cast now. So fingers crossed, we'll those projects will come up.
Keep an eye out for those. And anyway,
absolutely. But as I said, I don't want to. I'm conscious of time because I don't want to hold yourselves up all night either. Ted, thanks for rejoining us again this week.
No, great to be able to come on another episode like this and interview an upcoming director who and like has really knocked it out of the park with this one. And the two films, as you said, it's going to be similar, not similar to The Thing, but it's along the same lines of The Thing, which is huge because everyone from this show, like, that's one of our top the four presenters. Like that's one of our top films that we go to when we're talking about horror. So I'd say we'll all be clamoring at you to get a go of that once it's ready to go.
Absolutely.
I hope not to disappoint.
Alberto, we appreciate your time this evening, and obviously the folks at Studio Canal for hooking this up for us, and hooking us up to be able to actually see the movie. And we wish you every single success with the future upcoming movies, which we've no doubt you're going to smash. If BagHead's anything to go by. But folks, this has been your Friday night. I will finish this the way I finish every single Friday night. In the words of the great George A. Romero, ladies and gentlemen, stay scared.
Thank you very much, guys.